Pambansang Awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, helas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tula, kawin sa paglayang minamahal, ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iibig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magtitigil. Luma ng araw ng walhati pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Subuhan ang kapuputan sa habagatan, kinapusuran lalawigan sa kabisay-an, sa kaalam adunahan, sa among gugmaot lumukan unay halaran. Subuon ang binunyagan sa Kristohanong tinuuan, ipanalipanalayunan kanunay Senyo sa Luzon ninyo, makasaysayanon, maabi-abihon, madanihunong angay kagayon nga ipasigarbo. Subo pinangga sa klima ug panahon,
Maayong hapon, buenas tardes, Filipinas. This is yours truly, BJ Canotin Thompson, logging here in University of San Jose Recoletos, Basa, Pardo Campus, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and outside the Philippines. IAT Philippines begins right now.
March 19th this year, amid a fiesta celebration of Saint Joseph as patron of the Universal Church, the licensure exam for teachers took place at 37 testing centers nationwide. The 37 testing centers include Manila, Baguio, Bohol, Butuan, Cagayan de Oro, Cebu, Davao, Dumaguete, Iloilo, Coronadal, Legazpi, Lucena, Pagadian, Pampanga, Rosales, Tacloban, Tuguegarao, and Zamboanga. Additional test centers were designated to accommodate more examinees and avoid unnecessary distant travel in Antique, Bacolod, Bayambang, Calapan, Catanduanes, Kawayan, Digos, General Santos, Ilocos Norte, Iloxo, Kidapawan, Laguna, Marinduque, Masbate, Mati, Occidental Mindoro, Palawan, Romblon, and Tagum. Early in the morning that day, examinees fell in line while waiting for their turn to find their names and their assigned classrooms where they about to take the exam. Also, strict security measures like non-usage of mobile phones, not opening of reviewers, and non-disclosure of the test questionnaires were implemented before, during, and after the examination.
Good afternoon once again. We're now here within the vicinity of University of San Jose Recoletos, Basak Pardo Campus, and this is the venue for oath taking for newly licensed professional teachers who passed the March 2023 licensure exam for teachers. And based from the records that I have here, out of 60,896 examinees for elementary level, there are only 24,819 past the elementary level, while out of 102,272 examinees for secondary level, only 48,005 who passed the exam. And for the records for the whole Central Visayas region, we have here from Bohol, for elementary level, we have 346 passers, while for the secondary, 1,060. For Cebu Province, for elementary level, 1,538, while for the secondary, 2,117. And for the Negros Oriental Province, especially in Dumaguete City, for elementary level, we have 421 passers, while for the secondary level, we have 814 passers.
According to the board news website of the Professional Regulations Commission or PRC, out of 24,819 passers from elementary level, 19,390 are first-timers and 5,429 are repeaters. While out of 48,005 passers from secondary level, 39,890 passers are first-timers and 8,115 are repeaters. The results were released on May 19th, 2 months after the exam. The program for March 2023 licensure exam for teachers were composed of 2 parts for elementary level and 3 parts for secondary level. To pass the licensure exam, an examinee must obtain an average rating of not less than 75% and must have no rating lower than 50% in any of the tests. The examination was originally set on March 26th, but was moved on March 19th due to conflict on schedule with the civil service examinations. The oath-taking ceremony were scheduled on different dates at each corresponding provinces. Oath-takers were divided depending at their preferred schedule, morning and afternoon schedules. In Cebu Province, thousands of oath-takers including their companions, coming from different parts of Cebu and Dumaguete, witnessed the oath-taking ceremony held inside the Coliseum of University of San Jose Recoletos, Masak Pardo campus. The ceremony was concluded through an energetic dance number musically accompanied with this famous song. Together with my sister, my fellow that pastor, Christine Marie Cosette. This is yours truly, VJ Pendleton Thompson, IAT Philippines. The month of July is indeed special for the sides of the Pharisees and the Tinambakans. July 14th, year 1940, is the birth anniversary of my late grandmother on mother's side, Buenaventurada Españo Gerson, whose nickname was Lola Buena. She was the wife of my late grandfather, also on mother's side, Ignacio Sanoria Flores. They had 3 children named Edwin, whose residency and present status are now unknown. My late mother Irma, who died on November 19th, year 2006, and my late aunt Emmeline, who died on March 22nd, year 2022. Anhing Lola Buena died on February 16th, year 2004 due to diabetes. July 15th, year 2012 is the death anniversary of my late grandfather on father's side, Rito Kalimbas Tinambakan Sr., whose nickname was Tatay Untoy. His parents were the late Venancio Tatay Insong Abina Tinambakan and the late Josefa Nanay Sefa Kalimbas. He married the late Lucrecia Perez, whose nickname was Nanay Lukring. Anhing Tatay Untoy and Anhing Nanay Lukring had 3 living children and 3 deceased children. Their 3 living children are Julieta, whose nickname is Indak, Rito Jr., whose nickname is Larry, and Rosa, whose nickname is Tita Rose. While their 3 deceased children were the late Nancy, who died due to an eye ailment, and the unnamed pair of twins who died inside the late Nanay Lukring's womb. Anhing Tatay Untoy died due to stroke.
Analia
The season of ordinary time is where nothing else is scheduled on Sundays. The season consists of two in-between periods. One is short period between Christmas season and the beginning of Lenten season, while the other is the long period between the Pentecost and the first Sunday of Advent. The Sundays within this season are called Sundays of the year. This is where the Holy Spirit, the third person of the Holy Trinity, helps us to remember that ordinary days are important. The season of ordinary time is usually symbolized by color green, the sign of hope. Today, July 16th, is the patronal feast of the Carmelites. The Carmelite Order takes its name from Mount Carmel, which was the first place dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and where a chapel was erected in her honor before her assumption into heaven. The said Marian feast was extended to the entire Latin Church by Pope Benedict XIII on September 24th, year 1726. At this point, we're about to present you all the history of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, made possible by Morning Star Family Holy Hour.
Once upon a time, there was a young woman named Mary. God had granted her special graces so that she would always be pure and holy. And in fact, she was so pure and holy that God sent an angel to ask her to be the mother of his son, Jesus. She said yes, and a few months later, Jesus was born. That's what we celebrate at Christmas. But later, as Jesus was dying on the cross, he told Mary that she was to be our mother too. He wanted her, who loved God so much, to teach us how to love him like she did. And that's really good news, because we need all the help we can get. Now fast forward a few hundred years, we can see just how much Mary loves us like a mother. In the Holy Land, there were monks who lived on a mountain called Mount Carmel. They were very holy and they prayed a lot. But unfortunately, people started to make fun of them and even tried to hurt them. So the leader of the monks, whose name was Simon, began praying to Mother Mary for help. And much to his surprise, she appeared to him. She thanked Simon for his prayers, told him that God would stop the people from being so mean to the monks, and reassured him that she is always with him and all her children on earth. And then, Mary gave him a very special sign, a cloth called a scapular, to wear around his neck. She told Simon that every time he sees or feels the scapular while wearing it, he can remember how much she loves, protects, and cares for him like a mother, always leading him to her son, Jesus. Now Simon was so excited, he ran to show the scapular to the other monks and told them what it symbolized. Soon, all of Simon's order of monks, who were called the Carmelites, made their own scapulars and wore them as a part of their habit. But eventually, the scapular became popular with those who were not monks, and even today, hundreds of years later, lots of people still like wearing one. They wear it so that they will never forget about Mother Mary and her love, protection, and example of how to live a holy life.
Señor San Jose, matarong kagayon, ang imong kinabuhi, santos nga matuod. O Señor San Jose, makita kang takos, kamo may magdalan kay sa bata nga si Jesus. O Señor San Jose, esposo nga putli, sa inangan sa Diyos, putliyon mo kami. O Señor San Jose, bantayan mo kami sa among kamatay, tabangan mo kami.
The Augustinian order was the first order came in the Philippines in year 1565, then followed by the Franciscan order in year 1578, Jesuit order in year 1581, Dominican order in year 1587, the Recollects in year 1606, the Benedictine order in year 1895, the Redemptorists in year 1905, the Mill Hill Missionaries in year 1906, the Congregation of the Immaculate Heart of Mary in year 1907, the Society of the Divine Word and the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart in year 1908, the De La Salle Brothers in year 1911, Oblates of St. Joseph in year 1915, the Discalced Carmelites in year 1923, the Columban Missionaries in year 1929, the Society of St. Paul in year 1937, the Oblates of Mary Immaculate in year 1939, the Salesians of Don Bosco in year 1951, and the Carmelites in year 1957. At this point, we're about to present you all the history of the Carmelite Order, which was uploaded on YouTube channel named Hong Tran.
Los Carmeli, vitis florigera, splendor celi, virgo pruemera, singularis, mater mitis,
The name Mount Carmel evokes the last part of a complex of heights that constitute a mountainous range in the Holy Land, today known as Israel. The range is 25 kilometers long and 12 kilometers in width, with a maximum height of 564 meters. It is plowed with valleys and has an area of 150 square kilometers. It is situated north of the Haifa Bay. To the south, it confines with the land of Caesarea, east with the plain of Esdraelon and Saron, and west with the Mediterranean. The rocks are limestone, and this has permitted the formation of numerous caves. Even if the ground is not suitable due to the height, the fertility of the Carmel refers to the spontaneous vegetation due to the abundant dew present especially in summer. Maybe this is the reason for the meaning of the word Carmel, garden. In references regarding the biblical world, Mount Carmel is always considered as a sign of grace, of blessing and of beauty because of its rich vegetation. In this, one can see the place of the renewal of alliance and of the interventions made by God and through the prophet Elias, of whose movements and memories the mountain is rich. During the period of the Third Crusade, with the presence of the Carmelites, the Carmel also became a place of worship to Maria. The rising of the Carmelite Order is connected to a group of Christians that came from Europe, who established themselves on Mount Carmel towards the end of the 12th century. In the medieval, there was the Societas Christiana, that is, a society in which the world consisted in the body and the church the soul. During the 12th and 13th centuries, this Christian society was tormented by a deep transformation that collided with the feudal system of that time. In this period, amongst the ferment that favors the Christian life, there is the appeal for an effective solitude and a separation of the activities, above all temporal. The simplicity of life as chosen calls for the research of solitary places and determines a movement called Hermetism, which expressed itself in that period in its own way and with its own characteristics. The hermits, towards the end of the medieval and during the rising of the New Age, lived individually or in groups, bound to a monastery or even as independents. They followed or did not follow the monastery laws that orientated the hermits' lives. Another way to express the conversion in that period was the pilgrimage. The pilgrim lived as well as living, poverty, mendicancy and wandering, but also emigration. Hermits established themselves in various Palestinian localities during the Crusades in the Holy Land, and therefore there was a wide expansion of religious hermetism. During the Third Crusade, a new group of Latin hermits established themselves on Mount Carmel. This group was certainly formed of penitents, hermits and pilgrims who took on the spiritual way of life of that time. Giacomo de Vitri, bishop of Acre in 1216, talked about the expansion of religious life in the Holy Land and of the Carmelites on Mount Carmel during the Crusades. Besides holy men renouncing the world and lit by the fervency of religious life, they chose, according to various preferences and desires, the most adaptable places for their intentions and for their devotion. Others, imitating the example of the holy man and solitary prophet Elias, lived as hermits on Mount Carmel, which rises near the city of Porphyria and Haifa, close to the source named after Elias. They lived in solitude, each on his own, in caves similar to beehives, where, like bees, they produced the holy honey of the spiritual sweetness. At the beginning of the charismatic experience, there is a deep correlation with Elias through the place chosen to live on Mount Carmel that establishes, because of the mentality of that period, almost a physical contact with the prophet. For the pilgrim that visited the Holy Land, Mount Carmel was the place where Elias lived, conducted his hermit life, and passed part of his life. The name Elias means Yahweh is my God. This is the name of the prophet that defended fearlessly the Jebus religion against Achab and Jezebel, promoters of the idolatrous cult in Baal. The adventures of this stern and ardent prophet had such an impact amongst the population that legendary tales were created about him. Elias is a solitary prophet that cultivates the thirst of one God and lives in his presence. He is the contemplative rapt by burning passion for the absolute God, of whom the word burnt like a torch. He is the mystic that after a long and strenuous walk learns to read the signs of the presence of God. He is the prophet that is involved in the life of the people, and fighting against false idols brings them back to the fidelity of the alliance with one God. He is the prophet united with the poor and the distant, and defends those who suffer violence and injustice. From Elijah, the Carmelite learns to be a man of the desert, with an indivisible heart for God, dedicated to the service of God, a man that made a choice without compromises for the cause of God and for God, burning with passion. Like Elias, he believes in God, and he lets himself be conducted by the Spirit and by the word he has in his heart, to testify the divine presence in the world, accepting that he is really God in his life. The Carmelite sees in Elias the brotherhood experienced in the community, and with him he learns to be the channel of God's tenderness towards the poor and the humble. In this way, the Carmelite looks at the great prophet as his maestro and his model for inspiration. Maria, the mother of Jesus, the mother of the Lord of the land, and therefore the Lady of the land, that takes care of her son's servants in need. The most ancient icon is a board portraying Saint Mary of the Carmen, called La Bruna, that is venerated in the Basilica of the Carmine Maggiore in Naples. A pious tradition tells us that the Carmelites brought it with them, leaving Mount Carmel during a phase of transmigration to Europe. The choice of the Marian patronage is characterized through the dedication to Mary in the first church on Mount Carmel. The title of the Marian Order was already diffused towards the middle of the 13th century. In the Virgin Mary, Mother of God and of the Church, the Carmelites find a perfect image of everything they desire and hope to be. This is why Mary has always been considered the patron of the order, of which she is also called Mother and Dignity, and that the Carmelites have always seen as the purest Virgin. Looking at her and living a spiritual life closely with her, we learn to stay in front of God and together as brothers of God. In fact, Mary lives amongst us, as a mother and as a sister, attentive to our needs, and together with us she waits, hopes, suffers, and rejoices. Through the centuries, the Marian of the Carmel devotion is expressed with an attitude of interwoven love, of tender and familiar sweetness, of harmony and similarity with Mary and imitating her virtues. It is impossible to talk about this Marian devotion without remembering the Scapular, as for many centuries the order has been symbolized in this and its relationship with Mary, its consecration to her, and the special protection. The Scapular is connected to a venerable tradition of the order, the vision of Saint Simon Stock, diffused at the end of the 14th century. According to this tradition, the Madonna appeared to the saint holding the scapular and promising him and his monks that whoever died wearing it would be saved. This historical truth of this version has been discussed and is still discussed. At present, the most widespread amongst the studious affirms that it is non-proven that this vision is false, but the proof given for its authenticity is not satisfactory. Another promise connected to the scapular and approved by the Church is the so-called Sabbatino privilege, with the liberation of the devoted to Maria as soon as possible from the purifying flames of purgatory. The diffusion of the devotion to the scapular amongst the believers starting from the 16th century was extensive, and still today it is amongst the most diffused Marian devotions in the world. The scapular, this way, helped as an instrument to extend the Carmelite family outside the circle of friars and nuns, with an extensive gathering of the other parties and of the scapular confraternity members. As a sign of membership to the Carmel, the scapular is also a sign of belonging to Maria to express the devotion to this mother and the gathering of the followers to the Carmelite family. It expresses the conviction of the member to live consecrated to Mary and under her protection. It reminds whoever uses it the commitment to live their own Marian dimension that is characterized in a life of similarity with Mary in prayer, humility, and imitation of her virtues, inviting the intimate union with God and to the generous duty of fellow man and of the Church. With her maternal love, Mary takes care of her son's brothers, still pilgrims in the middle of danger and difficulties, until they reach their celestial Father. The scapular, so intense, defines for us the maternal spirituality of Mary, who protects life, saves during death, and intervenes after death.
Where Christianity marks its history, when the Magellan discovered Limasawa Island and held the first Holy Mass in 1521. You are consolidated, God's gift to everyone, blessed burning fields and crystal shores, all the hospitable people. Suddenly, yes, suddenly, a sleepy province no more. Suddenly, our place and our home. As the city of Roman Padre Burgos and the historical place of Limasawa Island, malipot ko mas logos puntok, sobrang ibago. Linuan San Francisco, Pintuyan, San Ricardo, Silvergrass at Uwan, Alahawan, Dinundayan, Dinunayan, and Silago. You are consolidated, God's gift to everyone, blessed burning fields and crystal shores, home of hospitable people. Suddenly, a sleepy province no more. Suddenly, our place and our home. You are consolidated, God's gift to everyone, blessed with burning fields and crystal shores, home of hospitable people. Suddenly, a sleepy province no more. Suddenly, our place and our home. You are consolidated,
The season of ordinary time is where nothing else is scheduled on Sundays. The season consists of two in-between periods. One is short period between Christmas season and the beginning of Lenten season, while the other is the long period between the Pentecost and the first Sunday of Advent. The Sundays within this season are called Sundays of the year. This is where the Holy Spirit, the third person of the Holy Trinity, helps us to remember that ordinary days are important. The season of ordinary time is usually symbolized by color green, the sign of hope.
This has been yours truly, BJ Pendleton Thompson. Yes, you heard it right and you seen it right. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and outside the Philippines. Be ready for our next adventure. Hasta la vista, cuídate.
Time for new adventures.
Good afternoon once again. I'm now here at the front of Casa Uraldo and the Kapiling Center.
Time for new discoveries. Painting 1 was not in a Philippine setting, but rather a Mexican setting, where the battle between the native Mexicans and the Spanish conquistadores took place. That is, the Tigex War. Defending the Catholic faith through religious tourism. Jerusalem is the place where Christianity was originated. This is when our Lord Jesus Christ appointed Peter to be his successor and to be the first pope of the church. Aiming to cherish every moment.
A long time that hindi po tayo nagkakita dahil po sa 2 taon na pandemic. Yeah, so when you arrive, your first thing to do is kiss the lang. Oh my God.
And to create memories. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, and outside the Philippines. Ito ang mas pinalakas ug mas gipalapda. El Nuevo, IAT Philippines.
I love Cebu. I love Cebu.
Daw paraiso ang kaanindot mo. Ang mga tao wag gid kay ikareklamo. Bisag asa ko paingon way puwas ang pagdaig ko. Magpabilin ka ning dughan ko. I love Cebu. Bahandi ka ning dughan ko. I love Cebu. Isigit ko ning kalibutan. Angay lang na ikaw ipasigarbo ko. I love Cebu. Bisag asa ko paingon way puas ang kalipay ko.